Welcome to Grandview. Nick Engelbert was born in 1881 in Austria. Following adventurous travel and work through several countries, he married Catherine Tony, a Swiss immigrant whose family had settled in Wisconsin. Engelbert settled in Hollandale to raise a family and operate a small dairy farm on the top of this hill. Taken with a view of the rolling hills, farms, and often foggy valleys, a view that has remained largely unchanged over the years, Nick named his farm Grandview. When his children were grown, Nick Engelbert began building an elaborate arched porch of concrete around the front entrance of the farmhouse that caps this hill, eventually covering every inch of the home's outer surface with concrete, inlaid with shards of china, glass, beads, buttons, and seashells. Over the next 15 years, Engelbert created more than 40 concrete sculptures in his yard, combining patriotic themes with imagery from history, fairy tales, mythology, and regional culture. The Austro-Hungarian double eagle was an early sculpture that Engelbert formed flat on a concrete slab, inset with stones and shells, and raised upright after it cured. He then made a matching American eagle bearing the Wisconsin state seal and set the pair, representing his native and adopted homelands, across the framework flanking the entryway to the house. He scavenged rocks from the nearby areas of glacial outwash prevalent in this driftless area of southwest Wisconsin. As passers-by saw what he was doing, many began dropping off boxes of shells or shards for Engelbert's interesting projects. This is how a local newspaper writer described the scene in the mid-1930s. Reaching the Nick Engelbert home at the top of the hill, the scribe thought he must be in Dickeyville, as craftsmanship, similar to the grotto, was very evident. Masonry pillars topped with glass-covered stucco vases guarded the driveway. A rock garden east of the house has the word welcome outlined in large letters with stones and different colored flowers. A porch on the west is roofed with stucco and colored glass, and in addition, there are the single eagle bearing the American shield and the double eagle standing guard. Tame grapes are trellised over the whole structure, making a delightful arbor. Mr. Engelbert hails from Austria, so to the north of the house he has built a miniature castle patterned after Habsburg Castle in his homeland. The Engelberts are intelligent, friendly people, and visitors will find the place well worth inspecting. The Engelbert family may have first seen the work of Father Matthias Wernerus at the dedication of the Holy Ghost Park in Dickeyville, Wisconsin. This event drew hundreds of visitors from around the state in September of 1930. After making some concrete planters that he embellished with shells and stones in the manner of the Wernerus, Nick Engelbert decided to embellish the plain white clapboard exterior of his home. He built a high framework across the front with arches at either end, and with the help of a professional mason, he coated the entire surface with concrete, insetting the wet surface with bits of colored glass, shells, and stones to embellish the facade you see today. Engelbert made tribute sculptures to the immigrant populations of southwestern Wisconsin, beginning with a hiker to represent the Austrian Carinthian forest ranger. His miniature Blarney Castle paid tribute to the Irish. A Viking in a ship stood for Norwegians, and the 3 Swiss men clustered around a flagpole paid tribute to the founding fathers of the Swiss Confederation. Engelbert told another newspaper reporter in 1940, "You really can't appreciate the United States until you've actually lived in other countries. It is because of my deep appreciation for what the United States has given me that I am continually working on this historical farmyard." By the mid-1940s, Engelbert was making such fanciful tableaux as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Paul Bunyan holding the state seal of Wisconsin. Snow White danced with dwarves on the lawn, amidst flower beds planted by Nick's wife, Catherine. Like James Tellin's painted concrete rendition of the dwarfs in his sculpture garden just outside of Sheboygan, Wisconsin, this work was inspired by Walt Disney's animated film that captivated audiences nationwide in 1937. The original 10-foot figure of Paul Bunyan with an armature made of telephone poles no longer graces the garden at Grandview, but parts of the original sculpture can be seen inside the house museum during open hours. Grandview has undergone extensive restoration with the support from the Kohler Foundation. Archaeological and other historical research, along with years of work by conservators and preservationists, have revived this once deteriorated site, now under the stewardship of the Pecatonica Educational Charitable Foundation. Engelbert included descriptive signs for several of his sculptures at Grandview. One of these was a tree he called the family tree, replete with 4 monkeys, named for each of his children. In cases where the sculptural elements were entirely destroyed, or when the original work of art is too fragile to remain outdoors, conservators have replicated the various elements of the outdoor setting. Here were the original monkeys, which no longer exist, were replicated from historic photographs. Other reproductions, such as the organ grinder, are indicated by signage. Engelbert called his last sculpture, "How do you expect to get a day's work out of a team like this?" It depicts a life-size Uncle Sam plowing with a team comprised of an elephant and a donkey, referencing the era's congressional political battles. The elephant is all that remains of this last sculpture. At the age of 70, no longer able to make sculptures, Engelbert turned to painting, and in the last decade of his life, Engelbert created over 200 small oils on board. These colorful and poignant autobiographical paintings are now in the collection of the John Michael Kohler Art Center in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, as are several of the original sculptures, the organ grinder, the lion, and the mermaid. The Engelbert House is now a small museum. Inside, you can learn about the history of Grandview and see remnants of the once fractured site. You can also see Engelbert's original picturesque wall mural and reproduction of a painting that Nick did documenting his Grandview sculpture garden.